नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत् नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवतसेवया भगवति उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी. So, continuing with our discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 9, Answers by Citing the Lord's Version, text number 11 onwards. So, Shukdev Goswami is further speaking to Parikshit Maharaj. Shyamavdataha Shatpatra Lochana Pishanga Vastraha Suruchaha Supeshashaha Sarve Chaturbhava Unmission Mani Praveka Nishkabhranaha Shuvarchasa. The inhabitants of just a sec. The inhabitants of the Vaikuntha planets are described as having a glowing sky bluish complexion. Their eyes resemble lotus flowers, their dress is of yellowish color, and their bodily features very attractive. They're just the age of growing youths. They all have four hands. They are all nicely decorated with pearl necklaces, with ornamental medallions, and they all appear to be effulgent. So before this, um, they have described the Vaikuntha planets. Now the inhabitants of the Vaikuntha planets are described. What Brahmaji saw after his meditation. The inhabitants in Vaikuntha lokas are all personalities with spiritual bodily features not to be found in the material world. We can find the descriptions in the revealed scriptures like Srimad Bhagavatam. Impersonal descriptions of transcendence in the scriptures indicate that the bodily features in Vaikuntha Loka are never to be seen in any part of the universe. As there are different bodily features in different places of a particular planet, or as there are different bodily features between bodies in different planets. Similarly, the bodily features of the inhabitants in Vaikuntha Loka are completely different from those in the material universe. For example, the four hands are distinct from the two hands in this world. So the bodily features of people in Vaikuntha Loka are described here. Some description is given. They also have glowing sky bluish complexion, just like Lord Vishnu or Krishna. And they're so beautiful, their eyes resemble lotus flowers. Their dress is of yellowish color, same color as Lord Vishnu or Krishna wears. And their bodily features are very attractive. So remember, these are the inhabitants of Vaikuntha Lokas, not of Golok Vrindavan. Of course, Golok Vrindavan is also it's topmost Vaikuntha planet, but still there is a difference between Golok Vrindavan and Vaikuntha planets. So in Vaikuntha planets, people, those who have achieved Vaikuntha Loka, they have the same bodily features as the Supreme Lord. Of course, there is a difference that it was explained in Brihad Bhagavatamrita when Gop Kumar goes to Vaikuntha and he sees Vaikuntha-vasis, and they were very beautiful. And he confused them. He thought he's the Supreme Lord himself. But then later he realized that they were all waiting on the Master, Lord Vishnu or Lord Narayan. And that's when he realized that there is a difference also. And what was the difference? The difference is Lord Vishnu wears this Vajanti Mala, none of the other inhabitants wear, and he also wears Kostub jewel. There's a special uh, pendant of Kostub jewel that he wears, and on his chest there's a Shrivatsa. There's a ray of golden hair, which is Shrivatsa, which is a place which represents Lakshmi Ji. And also on his chest there's a mark of Bhrigu Muni's lotus feet. So these marks sets him apart from the other Vaikuntha-vasis. But they all look same, beautiful, just like in the words here is mentioned. They all have four hands, and they're just the age of growing youth. Means nobody gets old in Vaikuntha Loka. They're all nicely decorated with pearl necklaces with ornamental medallions, and they all appear to be fulgent. And this is what Brahmaji is seeing after his meditation. Text number 12. Praval Vedurya Mrinal Varchasa Parishurat Kundal Moli Malinaha. Some of them are effulgent like coral and diamonds in complexion and have garlands on their heads, blooming like lotus flowers, and some wear earrings. There are some inhabitants who have attained the liberation of Sarupya, possessing bodily features like those of the personality of Godhead. The Vedurya diamond is specially meant for the personality of Godhead, but one who achieves the liberation of bodily equality with the Lord is especially favored with such diamonds on his body. So they all, obviously, these are the male people. All the females in Vaikuntha, they resemble Lakshmi ji. And they get the same opulence also. Text 30. भ्राजिनोभिर्या परितो विराजते लसद विमानावलिभिर् महात्मनां विद्योतमाना प्रमोदमाद्युभिः सविद्युद् अभ्रावलिभिर् यथा नभः. The Vaikuntha planets are also surrounded by various airplanes, all glowing and brilliantly situated. These airplanes belong to the great Mahatmas or devotees of the Lord. The ladies are as beautiful as lightning because they have celestial complexions. And all these combined together appear just like the sky decorated with both clouds and lightning. So the male, they resemble uh, Vishnu in color. So it's light sky blue or light blue color. And the female, they had the lightning, the color of lightning, because of celestial complexion. So beautifully it's described that together they're looking like sky decorated with both clouds and lightning. It appears that in Vaikuntha planets there are also airplanes brilliantly glowing, and they're occupied by the great devotees of the Lord, with ladies of celestial beauty as brilliant as lightning. As there are airplanes, so there must be different types of carriages like airplanes. But they may not be driven machines as we have experienced in this world, because everything is of the same nature of eternity, bliss, and knowledge. The airplanes and carriages are of the same quality as Brahman. Although there is nothing except Brahman, one should not mistakenly think that there is only void and no variegatedness. Thinking like that is due to a poor fund of knowledge, otherwise, no one would have such a misconception of voidness in Brahman. As there are airplanes, ladies and gentlemen, so there must be cities and houses and everything else, just suitable to the particular planets. One should not carry the idea of misconception from this world to the transcendental world and not take into consideration the nature of the atmosphere as completely free from the influence of time, etc., as described previously. So in the verse it is said there were great aeroplanes. They all had aeroplanes. And Prabhupada is saying if there are aeroplanes, there must be houses also. There must be palatial buildings as well. And of course, he didn't mention here. He said one place he said there must be airports also, or whichever way they park their aeroplanes. And the aeroplanes are not just driven machines like we have here. The aeroplanes are all celestial, all like conscious. Everything is conscious there. In fact, there's a there's a conversation of Prabhupada with one of his disciples. In the early days of ISKCON, book distribution time, the book distribution mostly used to happen at the airports. At the malls during Christmas time, but at the airports throughout the year. So and the devotees were so used to going to the airport to distribute books that they could not think of anything else. So every morning after Bhagavatam class, and they would have their breakfast prasadam, and that's it. They would all go pack in their vans and get their books and they go to the airport. And throughout the day, they would distribute books at the airport. At that time, obviously, it is before 9/11 when it happened. They could go uh, all the way to the lounge where people were sitting and waiting for the flight. And devotees would somehow try to strike the conversation and somehow give the books. And they would really distribute lots of books. So devotees, then Prabhupada, when he was explaining that there are airplanes in Vaikuntha, and if there are airplanes, there must be airports. So one devotee very innocently, he asked Prabhupada, okay, Prabhupada, so if there are airports in Vaikuntha Loka, so can we do your book distribution over there also? Because they could not think of anything else. For them, devotion service meant book distribution. And Prabhupada very happily responded, yes, why not? So the idea was this book distribution can go on even in Vaikuntha Loka. So no, not a problem there. Text 14. Shririyatra rupini urugaya padyo karoti manam bahuda vibhuti prenkham shritaya kusuma karanugar vigiyamana priya karma gayati. The goddess of fortune in her transcendental form is engaged in the loving service of the Lord's lotus feet. And being moved by the black bees, followers of spring, she is not only engaged in variegated pleasure, service to the Lord along with her constant companions, but also engaged in singing the glories of the Lord's activities. So everybody is engaged in serving the Lord. So in Vaikuntha Loka, even Lakshmi ji is engaged in serving the Lord, glorifying the Lord, singing His glories. See, the goddess of fortune is engaged in the loving service of the Lord's lotus feet. And being moved by the black bees, followers of spring, she is not only engaged in variegated pleasure, means moved by the black bees. The black bees would only come at the lotus flower or the flowers. So if the Lord's feet are compared to lotus flowers, and or could be Lakshmi ji is wearing garlands of lotus flower, and maybe in a hairdo also there are flowers. So black bees are constantly humming around over there. And followers of spring, the spring season, could be spring season always in Vaikuntha Loka. She is not only engaged in variegated pleasure, service, along with the constant companion, but is also engaged in singing the glories of the Lord's activities. Means wherever we are engaged in the service of the Lord and whenever we are engaged in singing the glories of the Lord, so that place is not different from Vaikuntha Loka, actually. Text 15. Dadarsha tatrakhil satvatam patim shriyapatim yagyapatim jagatpatim sunandananda prabhalara ahandadibhi swaparshadagrahe pariveshtitam vibham. Lord Brahma saw in the Vaikuntha planets the personality of Godhead, who is the Lord of the entire devotee community, the Lord of the goddess of fortune, the Lord of all sacrifices, and the Lord of the universe, and who served it by the foremost servitors like Nanda, Sananda, Prabal, and Arham, his immediate associates. When we speak of a king, it's naturally understood that the king is accompanied by his confidential associates like his secretary, private secretary, aide de camp, ministers, and advisors. So, also when we see the Lord, we see him with his different energies, associates, confidential servitors, etc. So the Supreme Lord, who is the leader of all living entities, the Lord of all devotee sects, the Lord of all opulences, the Lord of sacrifices, and the enjoyer of everything in his entire creation, is not only the Supreme Person, but is always, but also is always surrounded by his immediate associates, all engaged in their loving transcendental service to him. So Vaikuntha Loka doesn't mean it's void and Lord is all alone. Or sometimes people think that he was all alone, so he did the creation because he was bored. No, there's no such thing that he was all alone. There is no time when spiritual world did not exist. It's nitya, eternal. Just like jivas are eternal, the Lord is eternal, so is his spiritual world. So he always had associates like ministers and secretary, private secretary, advisors, and so many more. Sages are there. They're always there. Of course, everybody plays their part in his lila. That is different, but they are always present. And this is how the Lord is described. He's the Lord of the entire devotee community, the Lord of the goddess of fortune, the Lord of all sacrifices, and the Lord of the universe, enjoyer of everything in his creation. So that's the Supreme Lord. Text 16. Bhritya prasada vimukham drigashavam prasanna hasharun lochananam kiritanam gundalinam chaturbhujam pitam sukham vakshasi lakshitam shriyaha. The personality of Godhead seen leaning favorably towards his loving servitors, his very sight intoxicating and attractive, appeared to be very much satisfied. He had his smiling face decorated with an enchanting reddish hue. He was dressed in yellow robes and wore earrings and a helmet on his head. He had 4 hands, and his chest was marked with the lines of the goddess of fortune. So now Shukdev Goswami is describing the image or the form of the Lord. So far he described of his servitors, of his associates. In the Padma Puran, Uttarakhanda, there is a full description of the Yoga Peeth, or the particular place where the Lord is in audience to his eternal devotees. In that Yoga Peeth, the personifications of religion, knowledge, opulence, and renunciation are all seated at the lotus feet of the Lord. So religion, knowledge, opulence, renunciation, they're all persons in Vaikuntha Loka. Everything is a person there. There's no such thing as impersonalism. And they're all seated at the lotus feet of the Lord. Means the Lord is beyond all these opulences. The 4 Vedas headed, namely Rig, Sam, Yajur, and Athar, were present personally to advise the Lord. The 16 energies headed by Chanda are all present there. Chanda and Kumud are the first 2 doorkeepers at the middle door, or the door are the doorkeepers named Bhadra and Subhadra, and at the last door are Jai and Vijay. There are other doorkeepers also named Kumad, Kumudaksha, Pundarik, Vaman, Shankukarna, Sarvanetra, Sumukha, etc. The Lord's palace is well decorated and protected by the above mentioned doorkeepers. So it is said there are 7 doors. And the 4 Kumaras had gone through 6 doors, but the 7th door, which was managed by Jay and Vijay, that is where they got stuck and they could not go further. And that's where Jay and Vijay stopped them. And then the whole pastime happened. But the point is, everything is person there. Everything is conscious, and everybody is a person. The Lord Himself is person. It's not like uh, Brahm Jyoti is the governing function. Text 17. Adhyarhaniyasanam ashitam param vritam chatushodish pancha shakti yuktam bhagya sweritartar chadhruve swayeva dhaman ramamanam ishwaram. The Lord was seated on his throne and was surrounded by different energies like the 4, the 16, the 5, and the 6 natural opulences, along with other insignificant energies of the temporary character. But he was a factual Supreme Lord enjoying his own abode. The Lord is naturally endowed with his 6 opulences. Specifically, he is the richest, the most powerful, he is the most famous, most beautiful, greatest in knowledge, and he is the greatest renouncer as well. And for his material creative energies, he is served by 4, namely the principles of Prakriti, Purusha, Mahatattva, and Ego. So there are, Prabhupada is giving description of all these energies, what is mentioned in the verse, like the 4 energies, now the 16 energies. Um, he is also served by the 16, namely the 5 elements, earth, water, fire, air, fire, sky, the 5 perceptive sense organs, eye, ear, nose, tongue, skin, the 5 working sense organs, the hand, the leg, the stomach, the evacuation outlet, and the genitals, and the mind. So altogether they become 16. And then Shloka says the 5. The 5 includes the sense objects, namely form, taste, smell, touch, sound. All these 25 items serve the Lord in the material creation, and all of them are personally present to serve the Lord. The insignificant opulences, numbering 8, the Ashtasiddhis attained by yogis for temporary overlordships, are also under his control. But he is naturally full with all such powers without any effort, and therefore he is the Supreme Lord. So he doesn't need to do any austerities and tapasya to attain these powers or these opulences. He always has them. Even when he's a little boy, he has them. Even when he is performing the passions or just taking birth, he has all these opulences in full. The living being, by severe penance and performance of bodily exercises, can temporarily attain some wonderful power, but that does not make him the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord, by his own potency, is unlimitedly more powerful than any yogi. He is unlimitedly more learned than any jnani. He is unlimitedly richer than any wealthy person. He is unlimitedly more beautiful than any beautiful living being. And he is unlimitedly more charitable than any philanthropist. So charitable because he is the greatest renouncer. He likes to give everything away. He is above all. No one is equal to or greater than him. Nor can anyone reach his level of perfection in any of the above powers by any amount of penance or yogic demonstrations. So nobody can come close to what he has in all the 6 opulences. The yogis are dependent on his mercy. Out of his immensely charitable disposition, he can award some temporary powers to the yogis because of the yogis hankering after them. But due to his unalloyed but to his unalloyed devotees who do not want anything from the Lord, save and accept his transcendental service, the Lord is so pleased that he gives himself in exchange for unalloyed service. So, but to his devotees, to everybody else, he can give anything, whatever they want. But to his devotees, those devotees who don't want anything else except the service of the Lord gives himself to those devotees. To rest everybody, he gives whatever they want, whatever material opulence they want, any shaktis, any powers they want, he's ready to give them. But to his devotees, he give them himself. He give himself of it to them. So anyway, we'll stop here. See anybody has any questions or comments.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Very nicely explained the qualities of Vaikuntha people. Prabhuji, just want to understand and sir, about this very naive question. So we talked of people, everybody wearing yellow color in the Vaikuntha pant. So is there description in any other uh, shastra that no other color exists, that they wear only yellow color, or they want to because they're devotees of the Lord and Lord wears yellow color, they are wearing yellow. Because if everybody wears yellow, then from a material perception, will it not become very monotonous?
That's that's the way we think. No? The thing is, as we studied in previous verses, there is no influence of time. It becomes boring or monotonous with time. If everything is new always, so nothing becomes monotonous or boring. Krishna or Lord Vishnu likes to wear yellow clothes. He is known as Pitambar. Pitambar means yellow cloth or yellow color cloth. So if he wears and it is new every time, so there is no question of getting bored or getting old, that color getting old or anything else happening to it. I know with our brain we must be thinking, how come when he opens his almirah and he sees only yellow dhotis and yellow chadars? But but this is our understanding.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Yeah,
And actually, it appears as if we have been transferred to that world, and actually, kind of through this description, in fact, we it seems that we experienced how they look, how they live, and all.
yep.
Thank you, Prabhuji, and it's so nicely explained. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu. Sorry for little disturbance in the beginning. Something happened to the headphone and it didn't work. Anyway, we'll stop here. You all have a wonderful day. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri
Hare
Prabhupada.
Krishna.